What's up, gang? This is George Pass coming at you. Want to deal with a subject matter today, hot topic, dealing with musicianship versus minstrelship here at the Impartation Series. I've been blessed to be a musician since I was 4 years old. As a boy, my mother was in the kitchen and noticed I was on the piano at 4 playing a redundant melody. And then I added another finger to it as though to put it in major second form. Or even a major third, just making a melody. She came in from the kitchen and said, "You just don't do that." So she gave me a little test melody to play, and I played it right behind her. She told me to play something else. I played that behind her. Before you knew it, she had taught me everything she knew. And by the time I was 6 years old, she was putting me on her lap while I played for my father's message in the exhortation portion. By the time I was 9 years old, I was the full-time organist for the church. And I've been playing now all of these years. I've been blessed to go all over the world, play for many great names, artists and evangelists, even kings and queens. One of the things that have affected my musicianship down through the years is my relationship with Jesus Christ. And having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ causes a level of intimacy to be established between my faith and my profession of faith. I found and discovered that he is real. And so through my musicianship, I noticed that as I played, the presence of the Lord would come. As I got older and played in more venues and on more stages and in more churches, I have discovered that there was a difference between often my musicianship and the next accomplished musician. I'm not the only one. But every musician is not the same. Every musician does not have the same impact on its listeners. There are some unique impacts and effects that some musicians have. While all of the musicians that are accomplished will woo us and wow us, not all of them will inspire and melt you, cause your heart to be rid of all of its resistance, and cause the person to be receptive to a move of the Spirit of God. Today, then, I just in short want to help you understand that all musicians are not minstrels. And I recently have heard that there are musicians and have heard musicians refer to themselves as minstrels, while as they played, nothing shook, broke, or was ushered into any other realm other than the realm whereby the gift was offered. In the medieval times, in the 19th century, the English definition for minstrel was suggestive of a group of entertainers that were particularly white ethnic persons who would paint their faces black in order to wow and entertain the audience. Biblically, the scriptures in the Old Testament go so far back, even before the days of Jehoshaphat, even in the day of David and Saul, whereby they would need a minstrel. One of the things that strike my memory the most, in short, is when there were 3 kings that faced a battle against the body of Moab, the kingdom of Moab. And Elisha was sent for instructions from God, the prophet. But before he could offer them a word from the Lord, he asked in 2 King to have them send for a minstrel. The minstrel came and he played. In the Bibles and the scriptures, the minstrel targets a string instrument. In the New Testament, it was expanded into flute instrument, woodwind instruments, always inclusive often of singing. So the minstrel is not always the person that plays. The minstrel can also sing. The significance of the minstrel, as opposed to just the person who plays or sings, is that every person who has been given the talent or the gift to play or sing will be able to entertain and inspire. But the significance of a minstrel and how he is distinguished first by God from just the next individual who have been given the talent is that God takes personal interest in the minstrel's presentation. He attaches himself to certain musicianships as a symbol of his presence. And the means by which we know he honors it is that every time they play, his presence comes and migrates, and everybody that experiences the musicianship also experiences the presence of God. That's the difference between the musician and the minstrel. So it is interchangeable. If God then grants the minstrel the power of access to the presence of God to come into a regular, unsanctioned atmosphere and cause the glory of the Lord to come into that place, into that dwelling, and the people experience the presence of God, then the interchangeable posture for the minstrel is to love the presence of God. How can you be a vehicle or conduit for the presence of God and not fall in love with the experience of God's presence yourself? Here then, the minstrel becomes the anointed vessel of God. He loves the presence of God. The presence of God then redefines his musicianship, whereby before he may be just cognizant of the technicalities of musicianship, the technique, the theory behind the musicianship. Here now, he may even evolve to the point where he sees what he has is valuable enough to be compensated for it and go to a greater scale of compensation. The day that the musician evolves into the presence of God as a result of his musicianship is the day that he falls in love with the presence of God. The difference then between the minstrel and the musician, even in their most severe accomplished state, is that the minstrel does not seek compensation first for his musicianship, because the presence of God becomes preeminent. It becomes the dominant factor. It becomes the common denominator between his intention or his interest in sitting down to his instrument at all. My first motive for sitting down at my instrument is that I know when I play, the presence of God is about to come into this room. And so, I want to encourage as many musicians as possible to fall more in love with the presence of the one who gives the gift more than the gift itself. Because if you fall only in love with the gift itself, you will be driven by the gifts of men that are given to you because of the gift that was given by the giver. I want you to identify that when there is a love for the presence of the one who gives the gift, then there is another dimension of exposure whereby you understand how to experience dominion in two realms. You are taking control of the atmosphere in the spirit realm and in the realm by which you are physically performing. Now, what God does is he gives gifts to men. And when he gives these gifts to men, he causes men who are minstrels to identify their gifts as guarantees that his presence will always come. The church is experiencing somewhat of a deficit in that not enough musicians are graduating and evolving to minstrelship. Because of this, we are having worship experiences with no encounters. We are coming to services, hearing choirs and listening to preaching with no manifestation of the presence of God. Even the prophet in 2 Kings chapter 3 verse 15 needed a minstrel. And so if the prophet needs a minstrel, the preacher needs a minstrel, the apostle needs a minstrel, the bishop needs a minstrel, the usher needs a minstrel, my grandma needs a minstrel, my dog needs a minstrel. Everybody needs a minstrel because everybody needs the presence of God. So then the church has to be restored by the recovenanting of musicians to another level of expectation and performance. Your musicianship has been given to you as a guarantee from God to the earth that wherever you come and seek my presence, after you have been battered and bruised and abused and broken and fought and sick and in catastrophe and experiencing turmoil, come to my presence, come to my dwelling place, and I'm going to set before you a minstrel, and he's going to play and sing. She's going to play and sing until the glory of the Lord comes in and take authority over everything that tried to destroy you. So let's look at this even closer, hopefully offering you some nuggets that will help your sojourning going to another level. When I look at what we do in the church, we are good at what we do, not because we are good, but because he's good. He gives gifts to men. But we find that many times in church, people are giving gifts and it goes to their head instead of going to their heart. And so some of the persons that are in church are the last people you want to even be around because they have such a high-minded attitude that you can't even be in their company. They see you as being less than they are, not worthy to be around them. And I personally, I'm not impressed with people who place themselves on the same level with God. If you bleed when you're cut, if you still have pain, if you can still catch a cold, you need God just as much as everybody else. I just want to tell everybody to give it a second chance. Anybody that's become disgruntled or have experienced church hurt, remember this: you go to church because of who created you, not because of who's attending with you. It's important that you know you got a gift, you got an offering, you have something valuable to give everybody. And you've got to put yourself in a position where that gift and that offering can be cultivated and developed so it can have the greatest impact on everybody that experiences it. It cannot be about your personal emotions. It has to be about the salvation of the next generation. Do your part. Let's see how far we can take this thing called love and make everybody a one family episode with this ministry thing.